Welcome back, guys, to the Beyond Condition podcast, the voice of bodybuilding. And today we have a returning guest. Nick Bagley joins me. And of course, thank you, first of all, my friend.
Of course, yeah. Happy to be here.
It was super cool, actually. Our first one, a lot of podcast listeners were like, oh, who's this? Who's this person, Nick? Because, of course,
Mm.
where you're, on the other side of the pond, as it were, it's nice to bring your voice to the UK as well.
Yeah, for sure. I appreciate that very much.
No, yeah, it's good. And we align very much from our coaching, from what I see and what I put out, the alignment there is always something I look for. Now we're going to talk about your decision in your own competitive journey to actually step away from competing. And obviously you're pursuing coaching a lot. Your transformations, very, very good to see this. And it's really nice to see your bond with your clients as well. I feel like that's a big thing that I notice when you do your posts, etc. So hats off for that. Now, with your own decision, obviously I know a bit of background there, but how long have you been competing for and what sort of led you to this big life-changing decision?
Yeah, so I did my first show when I was I think I was still 19. I'm 31 and I had stopped at 31. That was a decision earlier this year. I was dealing with some stomach problems, so I was dealing with bacterial overgrowth in my stomach, having a lot of problems getting food down, dealing with a lot of nausea and just no energy, no motivation to do anything. And I kind of already had seen the writing on the walls of like, I have a kid, I have a 4-year-old son, and I've got a growing business and stuff. And at some point, something was going to have to go to kind of make room for other things. And it just got to a point where I felt like I was forcing myself to continue to try and do this competing thing. So it was time to just take that step away and not have it be the forefront of my thoughts anymore, and it's when you're in that mindset and you're looking at trying to improve your stage look, like even when you're in off season, if you're paying like if you're really trying to do what you need to do, it's a very selfish thing, and there's a lot of energy put into it that takes away from other areas of your life. And it was one of those things that I knew that if I was going to be the best coach I could be, the best boyfriend I could be, the best father I could be, like I needed that bandwidth to apply to those other areas. And the thing that I've been very privileged in the last few years to be able to do is like be around the elites, be around some of the best in the industry and see how their bodies respond to things and see how they're able to grow, how they're able to eat, how they're able to train. And like that's not me. It's not what I'm capable of. Like I can train with the best of them, but eating is my worst nightmare. And then like I'm a tall person, so I'm 6 foot. We just look at Samson, who just won the Olympia at 6'1" in the off season. That dude's 330 pounds. Like it's like
No.
I struggled to get to 265. So like
Yeah.
another 40, 50 pounds, like it's just not gonna happen. And there comes a crossroads in everyone's competing career where it's like, is the juice worth the squeeze anymore? Right. And it's a matter of like, yeah, could I have continued to get bigger? Could I have competed again? Yeah, for sure. But at what cost? Like at not only what cost to like my health and well-being, but like at what cost to the relationships around me, at what cost to my business, at what cost to like plug in whatever you want there. So
Mm.
it was just time to step away, and it was a big relief, to be completely honest. It's been, I get asked a lot about like if I miss it and stuff. And like, sure, there's aspects of it that I miss and I enjoyed and whatnot. But on the other side of it, it's like I'm staying busy enough to where like I don't even think about it. I just, it doesn't cross my mind on a regular basis anymore. And I'm just going to let the people who are good at this thing be good at it. And hopefully I can have a hand in helping them.
Yeah, for sure. I remember when I messaged you, like, how does it feel? And you're like, pretty good. Because, like you say, when you've spoken about it in the past, and we spoke about it a bit on the pod we did before, about how competitive can you be? And as you frame it, is the squeeze worth it? And it's like, with the rise in the expectations of competitive bodybuilding, as you say there with Samson. I had this conversation with my other half, Matt. He's never competed. However, if he was going to, he'd want to be competitive. He's a competitive person. And he was
For
like
sure.
pushing up to 300 pounds Plus, for me, he got to like 250, and it was like, apnea developed, various things, just general fitness, cramming in all of that food for another 50 or so pounds. It was like, it's not for me,
Yep.
and it's being realistic, isn't it? Which I think that's obviously the male side of it. But for females as well, you do need to be realistic. And I do think there is a bit of this delusion in the bodybuilding world at times.
Yeah, 100%. And women is a whole nother subject because it's like you have a very short window of life where you can create life, and like you look at most of these females, they're deciding they want to start competing in their early teens, and then a strong majority of them start looking at enhancing in the early 20s, and then you have this short fertility window where you're having a menstrual cycle,
Yeah.
and a span of 20 to 30 years might not sound like a short period of time, but when you are dysregulating that aggressively, not only because of dieting, but because of maybe other PEDs that you add on top of it, now you could be cutting that time period in a half or even a quarter, where like you only have a normal menstrual cycle for a very short window of time. And like that's just not healthy, like the I said this on another podcast the other week with Corey Hageman, is like there comes a point in a female's life where the menstrual cycle stops, and how many bad things are attached to the menstrual cycle stopping, like all these things that women talk about with these bad side effects that they get from their menstrual cycle disappearing, like osteoporosis and all these different things that start to happen to women in menopause. Like, why would you want to start that in your mid 20s? Like, why would you want that to be a thing? So, and then on top of it, it's like making the decision of I don't want kids in your early 20s is wild, right? Like, I didn't want kids in my early 20s, and then I had one at 27. Surprise. I'm doing this now. So it's like you don't know what life has in store for you. So to make like massive life decisions because you like really want this thing is like, all right, cool, but just understand that like you might regret this on the back end. So you got to really understand like what is it you really want out of this, and especially for females is like get in and get out and try to do as little damage as you can.
Yeah, because it does, the health things that come off the back of it. I'm able to talk about it from my own personal anecdote of competing back to back for 10 years. It's not nice to have, a thyroid condition, to have, well, like yourself with GI, it's a never ending thing for me. And I'm still 2 years out of a prep, and I'm still doing things now that need to rectify. And the things that happen, you don't hear about these things because you've got the highlight reel of Instagram, etc. And that's why I like to talk about it. And like yourself, talking about GI even. I remember watching the YouTube analysis you did of you got your was it GI mapping, and you did a bit of video there. Stuff like that. I feel like we probably think that people know about it, but GI mapping and things like, particularly in the UK, I don't hear that many people talking about it. I think in America maybe more so, but it's like, do you know what you're doing long term until it's too late sometimes? But how
Yeah.
do we frame that to say this could happen? Do you know what I mean? It's quite
Yeah.
difficult sometimes 'cause it's like, I'm going to compete, I'm going to be a bodybuilder. Fuck it?
Yeah, right. Yeah, and I mean, like, it's just a matter of like the further you get into it, making sure that it's managed right. Like in the beginning, you can kind of do whatever, and like you're not going to really mess yourself up that bad. But when you start to compound that stuff year after year, decade after decade, it's like at some point something's going to break, and it's like that's why it's so important for people to make sure that they find a coach who actually gives a shit, and like even if this individual doesn't know everything,
Yes.
right? If they don't, because I didn't, and I still don't. I don't know everything, and I'm still learning, and I don't claim to be one of the smartest people in the world. But what I can claim is that I give a shit about whoever wants to work with me, and through the process of giving shit about that individual, I'm going to find out whatever it is I need to in order to help that person, right? Because like the thing to me as far as like my stamp on coaching is like I'm sure you've encountered this as well, as like how many people have come to you and been like, oh, I was with this coach and they were terrible, and here's the plan that they were having me doing, and you look at this thing and you go, holy shit, this person's a coach.
For
And
sure.
that's the number one thing that I want to make sure no one is ever able to do with me.
Yes.
Like, I want to make sure that if somebody decides that they need to leave from me, whether it's like on good terms or bad terms, I want them to be able to go to the next coach and that coach go, how am I going to make this better? Like, how can I make like I want people to be blown away when they see my stuff and like not from an aspect of it being complicated, but like, oh shit, he was covering all these bases and like this is things that I didn't know about. So if I can create that experience or try to create that experience with each individual, then like you're going to have a good reputation, you know? So like I don't know everything, but the more I can find out about that person's specific thing they're going through, the more I can find out about how to handle it, you know?
Yeah, yeah, it is. I literally had this conversation on a consult today, and I said pretty much exactly what you said there. And I think there's merit as well for ourselves. We've built a realm of connections around us of trusted people. So I know that if I don't know something, pretty much I can guarantee that someone I can reach out to in my connections
Sure.
can guide the way. And whether or not it's to book my client in for an additional consult on the side of what we're doing, or whatever that needs to be,
Right.
selling someone a dream, like, and trying to blag your way through it, and this is how I framed it, that you're a human and I'm telling you exactly, like, pretty much I'm telling you exactly what to do with your whole life.
Right.
Now that's a huge responsibility as coaches, and it's one we take with honor. Now, I don't know if you can answer this. How do people do this and say that they're coaches and take people's money and just give them a copy and paste pan? Because I asked Austin this and he was like, they just do. It's
Yeah. I mean, it's just, the thing is it's easy to sound smart online. Like it's really easy to sound smart online because especially with AI, like
mm,
it's not that hard to type in like, hey, give me something cool to say about XYZ topic, and then they're able to just put something out and like people are gullible. People don't, and I've heard this talked about before is like if you get two experts in a room and they're both talking about something and they know just a little bit more than you do about a subject, it's hard to differentiate between who knows what they're talking about and who doesn't, right? Like it's a very difficult thing. So like I don't blame people for hiring these people, and the people who are to blame are the ones who are tricking them about this. But like it's this the thing is like this stuff isn't isolated to our industry. Like this is just humans. Like anytime there's going to be an opportunity where someone can take advantage of somebody, there's going to be somebody doing it. And that's just the unfortunate reality of the world that we live in. But the thing there is like while it sucks for someone to have gone through that type of experience with a bad coach, it also is good for us. It's good for us who are actually good coaches. Because like look, there's people who have been working with me who have never had another coach. They don't know anything else, right? But then there's a bunch of people who have been with absolutely terrible coaches and they come to me and they're absolutely blown away by what we're doing. And it's basics. It's like what I do every day. And it's like I'm blown away at the fact that you think this is incredible. And it makes us look even better. Like I don't wish anyone to have a bad experience with a coach, obviously, but it just makes us look better. And like it's hard to say that that is on the individual because of like if you don't know what questions to ask and you don't know what to look for, most people just look at client transformations, go, wow, this coach can really make some good progress, but like they don't have any idea of what that coach went through with that individual.
mm. It's one hell of a feeling. I can tell you get it as well when you do that first video check-in for them and they're like, holy shit, this is coaching.
Yeah.
And it's
Yeah.
we're both if you're not watching the video on YouTube, we're both sitting here grinning because it is one hell of a feeling. And I also find as well, Nick, is that buy-in from the client then it's like this unstoppable force and they're like, tell me what to do. And
100%.
we guide the way because we can't make someone do something, and that's something I'm passionate about as well. This is not a dictatorship, this is me guiding the ship, and if you can have input as well, this is good and we work together as a team. But I also feel like like you said earlier about not knowing everything, if a client sees the value in you as a coach, they don't expect you to know everything. They actually respect that you would look at other sources if you need to, and you can then learn as well. And that's part of what's a good coach, right? We want to excel, and we're not looking at ego here. We're looking at what can I do better, if you know what I mean, with the education side.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. I mean, like, look, whenever somebody comes onto my team, especially like if they're a lifestyle competitor, it's not something I typically bring up, but if they're a competitor, and especially if they're like a higher level competitor, like a higher level national person or a pro,
Mm.
I let them know, like, look, Dom Kuza is my mentor. I have a call with him every single week. So, like, I have someone else who's watching everything that I'm doing. That doesn't mean that this individual is sitting here making calls for me and I'm just like just repeating what he says. It's
Yeah.
like most of the time what's going on is like, look, this is this individual, this is what's going on with them, this is what I'm looking to do. What do you see? And then we'll just kind of shop some stuff back and forth. And there's been a number of times where he goes, look, I think you should do it this way. And I go, I respect you, but no.
Yeah.
And like there's been plenty of times where we've had that conversation and uh he makes a suggestion. I'm like, I see what you're saying, I see what your opinion is, but I think I need to do this instead. And like sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes I'm right, sometimes I'm wrong. And it just is what it is. But like it's the same thing with like having a coach. It's like it's an accountability thing. I'm
Yeah.
like I make sure that like when I bring something to him that I've already crossed my T's and dotted my I's, so that I make sure that I've already done everything in my power. But like, look, I'm having a problem.
Mm.
Right. And then we just kind of work things out. And then it's also a matter of like, there's a lot of stress and anxiety that comes along with peaking athletes. And when we're looking at either peaking multiple people on one day or peaking multiple athletes over multiple weeks, like you're dealing with just a lot of things coming at you, just because most of the time, like most peaks are not that smooth. Like there's not smooth, and I say that from an aspect of like the human portion of this, of like people are just very anxious and worried about what's going to happen, when it's like, look, you just got to stop worrying about that and just do what's in front of you. Like there's nothing we can do to control something that's 5 days out. All you can do is control exactly what I'm having you to do, and then from there it's not up to us. Like the more you can learn to drop that, the better. So when like clients are telling me about their anxiety, I take that on, and then now my anxiety is driven more. So like having somebody else to go, hey, you're making the right call, like this is the correct thing, or like, no, you're screwing this up, like that is a brilliant thing to have, of like just helping me make sure that I am keeping myself in the right mindset with whatever individuals in front of
Yeah.
me. And he and I have been working together for over a year now. So like he knows me fairly well, and I know kind of like half the time I kind of know what he's already going to say before he says it. And it's just a matter of like making sure that I reinforce that yes, I am making the correct decision, you know.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. I resonate fully with everything you're saying there. And the peak side of it as well. I was going to ask you about the burger and chips peak, but I'll save that for a second. But what I've certainly learned with peaking people, and you're probably going to be very similar. I speak about this a lot. You can have a pen to paper on any of the phases as a bodybuilder, so you can say, right, the peak is going to look like this. But, and hopefully you'll agree, the intuition as a coach, the changes that happen, sometimes you don't foresee them, but it's like, actually, we're going to make a little change here, or actually, we're going to do this. And this is where I always talk about keeping an open mind as an athlete, because things can change on the hour, on the day. Like you say, 5 days is a long period of time. So much can happen in that time. And then our intuition, if we've got that bond, if we've got previous data from the phases we've done together, it's an exciting time, but it is that open mind from the two of you also, isn't it?
Yep. Yeah, for sure. And I mean, like the thing is like our most of our job is like an interpretation of a body's language, right? So like the individual comes to us, they tell us this is what my appetite's doing, this is what my strength's doing, this is how I'm feeling. Like they give us all this data, and now we have to take that and interpret it back to them and go, cool. Well, that's you're telling me this, this is what it means, right? And like most of the time, people just like they get that data and they don't understand it, and they just start to panic on it, and they're like, I don't know what to do. So like we can have an idea of what we were planning to do, but like if something throws a curveball in, we have to respond to that curveball. It's like it's not ever going to be perfect every single time, but This is also why we test things. This is why we have data going into it of like I've got three people getting ready for nationals right now. They're a little over 2 weeks out. Chase, my heavyweight, I'm going to be testing a peak on him here in just a little bit because he's about the same weight that he was at the last show that we did, but he's far more conditioned. And on top of that, his body, I have to feed the living hell out of him. Like from Thursday to the end of day Saturday, the last show we did, we had probably close to 4,000 grams of carbs.
Wow.
And his metabolism is like as soon as I start feeding him, it just takes off. So like now my biggest thing is like, all right, cool, we're leaner. How does that affect our feed? So the like he's pretty much where he needs to be as far as condition is concerned. So it's time to just kind of test that. And like the biggest thing there is getting an athlete in shape ahead of time, right? Because like if you're not in shape, it doesn't matter what I do in peak week. Like it really doesn't matter. So if we can get you in shape ahead of time and we have 4 to 5 weeks where like I don't really have to keep pushing the pedal to really get you there, we might have a little bit left that we can get off, but like for the most part it's done. I can play around with a couple of days and give you more food than I normally would to see how your body responds. And like that's been the thing that's helped me out the most where it's like, oh look, I already have all this data. And once I have all this data, if a curveball comes, it's a very easy response. And like the main things that we look at there is like stress first and foremost. Does it need to go up? Does it need to go down? Usually it's down. Carbs, do they need to go up? Do they need to go down? Water, up or down? Salt, up or down? Those four things is all we're looking to manipulate, right? And it's a matter of finding that right balance to make sure that like everything comes together in the best manner possible. And the number one important thing there is the stress. Like stress being the number one thing of like the more we can get that to relax, the better the peak is going to go in all aspects, right? The better you're going to respond to the food, the water, the salt, like whatever it is that we end up changing, the less stress you have on the system, the better. Like I've got three athletes the week before nationals in Battle of Texas, and two of them right now are I'm feeding them more than we have the entire time, and their body weight has continued to drop. And that's because I've been like pulling cardio back on them. I've been pulling things back and just kind of letting the body chill. And because of that, stress water is falling off. So their body is responding and like things are clearing up and looking better and looking tighter and they're getting hungrier. And like that is the exact response we want.
Mm.
Like leading into the show, it's not like we need to use every single second until the show to continue to beat the living shit out of you because by the time you actually get to stage, you're going to just be run through the ringer. Like it's not going to come back to life the way you want it. So, yeah,
Mm.
get in shape and then peaking's a lot easier.
Yeah, and it like when you put out the variables, it's a bit like bodybuilding as a whole, right? It's quite a simple concept as such, like training, nutrition, if you're going to use PEDs. But then it's like the individual response. And I think that can sometimes be what's missing when we are looking at peaking people. And that's why it's important we talk about the coaching that we offer, because it's like it is such an individual response. And it's again, pen to paper, you can do all of these phases, but actually, it's those small manipulations. If you're taking someone from, where they've been and you want to progress that, could be some slight little tweaks. And also that communication and confidence in the coach. So if your clients are buying into you and they're like, we're in this together, I'm going to communicate as much as possible. That also adds to when they then step on stage, the pride, the lower stress, they're like, Nick, you just tell me what to do, I'm going to do it. And then you step on stage. And have you noticed yourself with over the years of coaching people, if you coach people for a longer period of time and then you go to do second seasons with them or third seasons, do you feel it gets easier or you're still manipulating lots of things?
I mean that just depends because it's like it's case by case, person by person, and then season by season, right? So it's like one person it could be easier, one person it could be harder. Like for example, right now, Blake, like one of my national guys, like we had an amazing season last year. He won the overall at his first show ever, and then got top five at nationals. And we started his season fairly early this year so that we had plenty of time so he could be super conditioned. And then we had some things go wrong. Texas Cup, last show we did, he ended up in second in his class. And that's just not what we're used to. And like there was a bunch of responses that we weren't used to, but there was also new variables that we weren't used to, and some things that we had to play around with and move around, and some things that he and I had to discuss to make sure that like, all right, we're on the same page, and like there's nothing extra happening here, and you're just doing exactly what's listed.
Yeah.
Um, and then there's people that like respond perfectly, like it's just it's a case by case thing, and it's just a matter of like the more time I have with the individuals, the more I'm able to kind of figure them out as a person, and then from there, like I can start to nail down the things of like, all right, this person needs this, right? Like I know when it's time to go, hey dude, get your head on straight, get it out of your ass, let's fucking do something. And then it's also that I also know like when it's time to do the opposite and go, hey, look, you need to give yourself some reprieve and let yourself relax a little bit, like you're redlining the system here. So the biggest thing there is like with more time, I'm just able to understand the individual better, rather than just like figuring it out as I go. And then once I'm able to figure that individual out, like whether it's easier or harder, like it's just a matter of how they're responding, really.
And the circumstance. And obviously, the more, I guess, there can be more, like your example there of like winning your first overall and it going well. There's like a different pressure when it's not your first time, but you also know what to expect. So it's sort of
Right.
like that as well, isn't it, from the athlete standpoint?
Right.
Now, Zach, who is a big fan, has sent in some questions for you for us to answer today, and they're very much related to what we've spoken about already. So this is a nice segue into the first question of what do you look for in successful clients and athletes? Or maybe what have you noticed? Would you say?
I mean, when it comes to clients, like the thing that I look for is an ability to give me effort. Like that's it. And like I always say, like people always ask, like, who do you want to work with? I want to work with anyone who's ready to work hard.
For
Plain
sure.
and simple. I don't care if you're trying to get on stage. I don't care if you're trying to lose 300 pounds. I don't care if you're just trying to get in better shape. Like I don't care as long as you are coming here to work. Like if you're coming here to work, let's do this thing. If you're not, get out of my face because I don't have time for it. Like I'm not here to baby you. I'm not here to be your therapist. I'm not here to be your best friend. I'm here to be your coach. And by being your coach, I have to point out negatives. I have to point out things you are doing wrong. Like that is quite literally the job. Now, at the same time, we also have to balance that and go, well, yes, you might be doing X, Y, and Z wrong, but you're doing A, B, and C really well. Right. So it's like we have to have that fine balance. But like ultimately at the end of the day, the coach's job is to find the flaws, find the things that are wrong and fix them, to move them in the right direction. So it's a matter of like, are you willing to work and are you willing to take criticism? Like, are you willing to take criticism in a manner that's going to be productive, right? Or are you going to be the person that thinks like, oh, he hates me because he said XYZ. It's like, no, I don't. Like, it's not it at all. It's like, there's just no reason for us to have this extra fluff. There's no reason for me to like, okay, sure, you're going through a time period where you broke up with your boyfriend. You can just tell me that. Like, that's the only snippet I need. I don't need the dissertation about why he's a piece of shit because I don't care. Like, that's something for you to deal with. I'm not your therapist. I'm not your best friend. I'm not the one that you're going to vent to about this. Like, just tell me you're dealing with something stressful, and then we'll respond as we need to. Yes, I care about you as an individual. Yes, I'm sorry to hear that you have those problems, but it's also not my job to deal with that. If you need someone to deal with that, like you need to go hire somebody or you need to go talk to your bestie, like not me. So it's a matter of like making sure that those individuals can work hard and take uh, criticism, and the ones who communicate the best, right? Like the people who like communicate effectively, right? It's like communication isn't just about like how many times do you blow up my phone and send me a message after message after message. It's like how can you get the most efficient like message to me to go, this is what I'm dealing with. This is what's going on. This is what I'm seeing. This is what I need. Like the people who can learn to communicate those things efficiently and effectively tend to do the best.
Yeah, it is as well, isn't it? Being concise. And I think that we learn that as competitors over the years. It's like if something's off, you can start to understand why that might be, rather than like when you're first into it, you're like, I don't really know what's happening here, and it's quite hard to communicate that. But then we can teach that as coaches, can't we? This is what I'm asking you, and this is what I need to know, and then it's trying to get that balance across of like what can you do about a scenario to, of course, enhance what you're going to do next. So yeah, I like
Right.
that. Now, this is a question for you as a coach. What drives you as a coach? So I guess that sort of, comes from what you're saying there about the clients you would have. But what would you say? When did you turn into a coach, and what sort of was your ambition at the start?
The interesting thing is like I kind of always wanted to do this. I just didn't quite know what it meant like at the time, I guess. Like in college, I had started to get into fitness, and like originally I was planning on joining the Marine Corps and being an officer and that kind of thing. And I went to Marine OCS and ended up getting injured. And then in that time after, I just decided like I don't think that this is for me. I don't think I want to go back and do this. And I had a phone call with my parents of like I want to open a gym someday. And it was kind of like one of those things of like, all right, that's great, but what are you going to do to make money? And that was kind of the transition there. And I think at the time they kind of had an outdated idea of what personal training was, right? Like at the time, like social media was just getting bigger, and people were starting to really be able to make good money on social media, that kind of thing. So it's not what the landscape is now by any means, but I just don't think that they had the same. It's hard to have that view of an internal dream from an external source, So like I don't blame my parents for saying that, because like I wouldn't tell my son to get into this career. Like I definitely wouldn't. Because like there is a lot of people who are trying to do exactly what I'm doing and are struggling and like not being able to pay bills. And there was plenty of times where I was worried about like, am I going to be able to make ends meet this month, But like I think even from an early age when I was like just getting into fitness, I had like a desire to try and help people with it and try to pass on my knowledge. And I think in some degree it's like there's a bit of a chip on the shoulder of like there was people being like, oh, you're not going to figure that out, and like, oh, why are you wasting your time with bodybuilding? And that you're not going to make money doing that. And now those people have messaged me about coaching, and it's like, yeah, like I don't see it that way. It's like it's just I don't have to be like, oh, I hate you because you didn't see my vision. It's just like, no, I knew what I wanted to do. So it's like there's a little bit of a chip on my shoulder of like I want to prove that like I can be somebody in this industry, and I know what I'm talking about, and that's been one of the big things that has allowed me to pick up some professional athletes in this last season is like, look, you have a million different options of people you can go to. Like there are a ton of coaches who are way better than me, who have been around for a long period of time, who have a bunch of social proof and stuff. But the thing they don't have is my insatiable desire to make them all look like shit. Like,
Yeah.
like not in any kind of like
No, no.
to tear anyone down by any means, but like I have a strong desire to be one of the best coaches that has ever been a coach. Like that is my personal desire, and it's not something I say often or online or anything because like I'm not trying to come across braggadocious or like cocky or anything, but like you got to dream big to get to those spots. So like if that's my goal, maybe I get there, maybe I don't, but I'm gonna bust my ass to get there. So it's just kind of a matter of like I want to prove that like I'm fucking good at this. I know what I'm doing. I know what I'm talking about. I know it because I love it. So it's that kind of thing. It's like I got a point to prove.
Yeah, nothing beats passion. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like, there's so much. Well, when we were sitting there smiling about, talking about the sort of the turn of when you're looking at taking someone on that's had a shit coach, and it's like what you can bring that individual. There is so much in that, and we we get off on being the obsessive nature we are as coaches, because you're delivering people to their fucking dreams. And I think that, you know, there's so much that goes into it. And I think that's important because you're passionate about that. And this is why I said at the start, I can see that through your social media. And I've seen more of your transformations coming through. I was actually talking to Zach at the gym the other day because we train at the same gym. And I was like,
Awesome.
Nick's an up and coming coach. Like I said to him, I can see it. I can see it because I can see the bond you have with your clients. I can see your results. and I know what you're trying to do from obviously speaking with you, and it's commendable. So you've got my fucking support, mate. And
Thank you.
it is
Appreciate it.
people will see it, Nick. Like, the shit sinks, and if you keep going, people will see it, and it's important, for us to share that in the industry when there's coaches of our nature, for us to, praise one another as well. So it's
Yeah,
important.
for sure. I appreciate that a lot.
Well,
Yeah, and
yeah.
like the biggest thing there is like I moved to Texas because I wanted to be around the fitness industry. And like at first I wasn't I was selling beer before I moved to Texas. And like I had been in a supplement store prior to that, so I was already in the fitness industry, but then I got laid off from a shitty situation with that, and like just was really fed up with the fitness world at that time. So when I moved to Texas, it was like I need to get into this personal training thing. So I started off with LA Fitness and Equinox, and then like COVID happened and it was like I need to make a shift. Like this needs to be a dramatic thing here. And I had gotten about a years of experience of in-person training, like a year and a half of in-person training, and like felt comfortable enough to where I was like, all right, I need to position myself around people that like I actually want to be around. Like Equinox was awesome, but like it's not my clientele. It's not the people I want to work with. Like most of them are not trying to actually do anything serious. Most of them are just looking to have somebody kind of work out with them so that they somewhat stay healthy. And like, I don't care about that. I want to work with people who want to change their life. So like I positioned myself at Destination Dallas, like one of the most well-known gyms in the world, Um, and it's put me in rooms with people who I never thought I would be in rooms with. And now some of those people come to me for advice. Some of those people come to me for training stuff and like ask me questions about coaching and what my thoughts are on things. And like every time it happens, I'm like, you're asking fucking me? Like, what are
This is
you talking about? Like, are you
right.
sure you want to ask that question? Like, you know who you're talking to? So it's like, but I didn't go to Destination Dallas with that idea in mind, like, oh, these people are gonna want information from me because I'm amazing. I went there trying to get just around them. I just want to be around these people and get a peek into that world. And then, like, if I'm able to make friends with them along the way, that's great. And then that happened. I made friends with them, and then they start to see what I'm doing. And then maybe they ask one question, and then that question helped them out a lot. So they ask some more, and then it just builds on that. So, like, I never went into these situations trying to get something out of it. I just went into it of like, I just want to be around these people and see what comes of it. And like, we see what's happening now. And that's part of why, like, I feel like this season has been um, just a really big shifting point for me of like, people are starting to see what I'm doing and what I'm putting on stage. And like, I know it's just going to continue to grow and stuff. And it has been continuing to grow. So it's just a matter of like, biding your time and not like getting ahead of yourself. Everybody wants to go from I decided to online coach to now I'm coaching Olympians. It's like that's not how this works. Like
Yeah.
you gotta wait your time and deal with who you deal with until you're able to get those better clients.
Yeah, and all coaches start somewhere, don't they? They've got to have people that trust in their service to then deliver
Yeah.
that. And then I heard this once actually, you only need like three wild transformations of, maybe you take someone from not doing much and just using the gym to, becoming a pro or whatever. If you have a few of those, it's like suddenly, who's this coach? And then it starts to gather the momentum. But we all have to have chances to do that to be able to get on
Yep.
that radar, as it were. And it's coming from for you, you are very humble and you're a fucking nice person. Like it's as simple as that, and that will continue to transpire. And the best thing is word of mouth, right? Like people talking, and you're never gonna have someone go, look at this shit program. It's like you said earlier, if another coach saw it, bloody hell, how am I gonna beat that? And that's
Yeah.
pride in your work as well, and that's important. And that's important for our clients, pride in what they're doing to then step on stage and actually have pride in, and for a client to go, I've executed to the plan to the absolute letter, and if we can formulate that trust, that's also feeding into what's a good client, one that follows the plan, right?
Right.
Mm.
Yep.
It's hard for
Yep.
us, how do we ever know 100%? But generally speaking, you can sort of see if someone's following the plan, right?
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, it's not hard to figure out the ones who are talking and the ones who are doing.
Yeah.
And it's very easy because like if we're making the changes to the food, to the training, to the cardio, to the supplements, to whatever it is, like there should
Mm.
be something happening for sure. Like I definitely understand that there are certain circumstances um where like maybe it's not because there's some other underlying issue, but like it's typically fairly easy to tell who's actually trying and who's not.
Mm. What do you do as a coach if you sort of, this is putting you on the spot a little bit, I'm sure you won't mind, but if you do come across a client and things aren't happening with the trajectory that you would foresee, so say it's a prep phase and things are just aren't shifting and you suspect that it is maybe cheating on the diet or whatever it is, if you've investigated, as you say, if there's something sinister going on, do you just sort of call it out or do you have ways to sort of try and tackle that?
Oh yeah, I mean, like I said, I don't have time to sit here and like beat around the bush with this. Is like if there's a problem, I address it immediately. It's like I mean, I'm not going to jump down their throat and be like, "Where you're cheating on your diet." It's going to be like, "All right, well, this is the data we have from all these other check-ins, and now we have this one, and something's going off here, and you're not reporting." Maybe they didn't report that they had something off, and then we're getting a response that's not normal. Okay, well, what happened? Like, did you use a new sauce? Did you use a new seasoning? Was your sleep bad? Did you drink more or less water? Did you use more salt? Like, there's a lot of questions I can ask there.
Yeah.
And then from there, typically go, no, well, I had this, or I did this, or I did that. It's like, okay, well, now we have information on what actually happened here. Like in the future, don't hide that because it's not about me lashing you about making a bad decision. It's about me being able to make the right decision on the back end, right? Because like if I don't know that you went and had some food off of your plan when you're in a prep, and now we get this weird response. And I'm like, what the fuck happened? Now I got to change the whole diet. When in reality, all that happened is you just went out and had a burger and fries when you weren't supposed to. Um, so it's just a matter of like, look, I'm not gonna kill you over this stuff. Like, if you sit here and do it week after week after week, I'm gonna pull you from the show. But that's gonna be a conversation we're gonna have about it. Of like, look, we got to get this under control before you can do a show. But it's a matter of being able to make sure that I make the right call for you, so that we can continue to make the goal that you have set for yourself, and that I'm trying to help you with.
Yeah, I think that's very relevant as well. I know that's very, very relevant when it comes to from a coaching standpoint. If we don't know things that are happening, we're literally in a prep scenario, we're gearing towards, so we've mentioned already, like if you're going to do a refeed or a practice peak, everything's geared towards that to set you up for success for the show. And if you do something away from what's planned, it's not just, oh, I just had this. Like that could affect the whole thing if you get into stage. And I think sometimes maybe from a client perspective or the consumer perspective, maybe they don't understand that that is, it's big because if we're putting someone on stage also, we want to do the best for them, but it's our name as well.
Right, for sure.
Mm.
Yeah.
Okay, and another question he asked. So, I don't know if you would be able to answer this. Do you find a difference between USA, European, and UK coaching styles and standards? So I don't know how much you've come across, the globe, as it were.
Not really. I mean, I think at the end of the day, we're all eating the same chicken. We're all eating the same rice. We're all lifting on the same piece of equipment, doing the same execution. It's like I think we'll see individual differences between like how coaches apply certain things, right? And it all depends on like where did they get their knowledge from, right? Like Kuba is someone that I follow and have talked with a number of times, and I know he's over in the UK, and he's also done a lot of the same certifications and stuff that I have. So like we have a very similar way of looking at how we structure programming and diet and like all these different things. So like I think it's more just a matter of like where they got their education from and who they've been working with, and then from there it's a matter of each individual's experience giving them a different way of handling certain things. So like I don't think it's necessarily like a UK versus a US or wherever the coach is. I think it's just a matter of like who they've worked with that's helped them come up. Where have they gathered their experience from?
Yeah, yeah, for sure. And then he asked about how would you determine when someone is ready to compete? as a pro. So if they were turning pro based on amateur results or comparability to pros. That's a bit of a wordy one there. So I guess breaking that down would be determining when someone would turn pro. So what you'd be looking at, I guess, from physique and mindset, I suppose, if you get someone that you think actually this person's got a chance at becoming pro, or whether they would be someone that would be staying in the amateur leagues.
I mean, again, that's an individual thing because like each person is going to be different, right? It's like, I mean, there's going to be a number of people who just want to do this thing because they enjoy it. And like maybe they have the physique and could go pro, but like they don't mentally have it. And it's like, all right, that's fine. You can still just like enjoy this thing and look really great on stage. Um, without ever going pro. But like it's a matter of like when it comes to muscularity and like that kind of thing is like you never know until you know. You never know until you get on stage, right? Because like how many times have we seen guys who look like absolute mutants in the off season and then they get on stage and they're super strong, super small. And like it just is what it is. And like you don't really fully know, like, yeah, you can sit here and go, yeah, I need some more size here and I need some more size there. But that's a game that you could play forever, right? Like that's a game that you could literally sit here forever and ever and go, well, I need more size here and I need more size there. Like it's bodybuilding. You're always going to need more size unless you are 330 pounds like Samson, it's like that it's bodybuilding. That is the name of the game. So like you can play that game all day, but it's a matter of like, are we close enough to where we can bring something that's going to be at least matchable to the people we're going to be against, like and then up from there, like look, we've seen people like Sean Clarita come into an open show and beat guys who are twice his size. So like it's not always a size game. It's a matter of like the full physique, right? It's a matter of like how does that structure flow? How does their condition come together? How well can you peak them, right? How good is everyone else who shows up that day? So it's like it's really a matter of like when are they ready to lock in on that goal? When are they ready to lock in on being able to do it? And then the rest of it is just the rest of it. Like I say it all the time is like if I could guarantee results on stage, I would be a much better coach than I am now. But we can't. No coach can. Like it's a matter of like who shows up on that day, and then on that day with those people who show up, who shows up in shape, who shows up peaked, who shows up ready to do the thing, and then who shows up and actually poses well. It's like there's a lot of factors that come into that stuff. So it's like that's kind of a hard one where it's like it's more or less like let's set a timeline, let's pick something, and then let's do everything we can to bring you at your best. The rest is the rest.
Yeah, for sure. It is. I have this conversation a lot. Timing, like literally, who turns up on the day, and we can't control that. You can also, there's different federations, so it might be that you get the look for one, and then the other one doesn't award it, and vice versa. And I think sometimes as competitors, it's quite hard for people to get their head around that you can't guarantee, oh, we're gonna win a show and because all you can do is your best in that scenario. And that's, of course, when we lead into then the reverse out in the post show and what that looks like.
Right.
If you do get athletes, I'm sure you'd agree that are like, my feedback is if it's more muscle, like you say, most people can get more muscle. Let's get fucking stuck in, reverse out, get a bit of health back, of course, take the foot off the gas, etc. Let's get stuck in. I'm game. There's nothing beats that, right? Where it's like it's a sport that is subjective, but also if you get your feedback, you take that feedback, you run with it. It's exciting then, and it does. I personally feel it helps the post-show period, if you know what I mean.
Yep. Yeah, for sure.
It's hard. It is. It's a bit of a wild one. I'm sure you don't miss that. The thought of a post-show yourself.
Post-show pumps are the best.
Now, I was going to ask you this about your burger and chips guy.
Yeah.
First of all, did you get any inquiries after sharing that post on Instagram about peeking someone on burger and chips?
Not really. I mean, inquiries in like what regard? Like people
Oh,
asking about why?
yeah, and just any,
Yeah, I mean, people were curious, but like the biggest thing when it comes to like having to use something like that is like when it comes down to sodium. Like when sodium is the problem and like sodium is the thing that the body is responding the most to, like that's when a Hail Mary, like a burger and fries works well, right? And like Dustin was a very specific example where this was his first prep ever, and he comes from a background of like kind of binge eating and snacking, and like he's used to just grabbing things here and there. So a number of weeks out, we were having some issues with like adherence, and he was starting to kind of crack as far as the mental state is concerned. So I was like, cool, let's give you a little breather. Let's go have a cheat meal, have something to look forward to. Um, See if that helps us out a little bit. And then he did that, sent me pictures on his next check-in, and he was vastly different. He looked 10
It's like,
times better, and his mental state was in a better spot. And I was like, well, shit, that's great. So then the next couple of weeks go by, and it's like, all right, we're in shape. Like, let's test at peak. And I give him regular food, all of his foods that he was normally eating, and I bump them up and just give him the more carbs and that kind of stuff. And like he just got soft. He looked worse. It didn't go well. He had bloating and digestive issues and all these things. And I was like, well, we got a better result with the burger than we did with this. So like we had one more opportunity to test it. So we tested it one more time and same result, looked better, looked fuller, looked drier, like all that stuff. And I was like, well, I guess this is what we're fucking doing. So that's what we went for, you know. It's like in the biggest thing that Dom and I discussed of like trying to figure out why that worked is like the on his free feeds when I gave him just regular food, protein, fats, and carbs were all fairly close, right? Like carbs might have been a little bit higher with the burger and fries, and same with fats, just a little bit higher, but not by a ton. But the number one thing that was different was the sodium. It was like he had that meal and he'd have 5, 6,000 grams of sodium in one meal. And like trying to do that in regular food would have been disgusting. Like having that much sodium on his chicken and rice, he'd have been like puking, not able to get it down. So that was the number one thing that like, hey, his body really likes this fucking salt. So let's give it a whirl. And it worked well. I mean, he won Masters. We missed open by a couple spots, but he was in condition as far as his first show is concerned. So it worked well that time. We'll just have to see if it works well in the future.
yeah, yeah. I only ask as well because one of my clients sent it just before peak week, and I was like, "Nick's asking for trouble here. I'm gonna have my clients asking for burger and chips." I'm only
Yeah.
joking, but yeah, it's so individual, and it's just another example, isn't it, of trying things and being able to do that if you can get in shape first, but also responding to the client as well is
Yeah.
super important. Now, before we wrap up. What's your training format and your food looking like at the moment? Just because I'm interested.
I mean, it's not that much different than what it used to be, to be honest. I mean, I still have the same like workout split. I might move some sessions around as far as like if I want to train with somebody on a specific day, I'll just move some stuff around, or if I want to try a new piece of equipment, I'll shuffle some things like, but the overall structure of my program is still pretty much the same as what it was when I was competing. And then food wise, I'm still eating bodybuilding food. I'm just eating less. So it's like I eat 4 meals a day. I eat when I'm hungry. If I'm not, I don't, and that's about it. But like, I'll have like an egg burrito in the morning. It's eggs, turkey, bacon, and cheese, and a carb balance wrap, and then chicken and rice, beef and rice, and then I'll have a protein creamy at the end of the day. So it's like nothing crazy. It's fairly normal. And then if I want to have something off plan, I'm gonna have something off plan. You know, I kind of do what I want, to be completely honest. But
Yeah.
um
Just
I
enjoy
still
it.
try to train as intensely as I can within my recovery capacity and like not overly brutalize myself, which has been a new learning thing of like I don't have all the food that I used to have. I don't have all the performance enhancers I used to have. So it's definitely a different story when it comes to recovery capacity these days. So I have to train within that limit. But yeah, training's been great. I mean, there's yeah, everything's been great since that. And it's like I just feel much more relaxed of like if I don't want to train, I don't have to, you know?
Yeah. Do you run baseline TRT for yourself?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. It's certainly something that people look at. Did you notice any coming away from the use of anabolics and did you notice anything with your mood and how you felt in your physique or have you
Oh
just
yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, my anxiety is way better. Like I can control it a lot more than I used to, and then like not quite as snappy, I guess is the easiest word to use. I don't have such a short trigger anymore. Of like I'm already a person who's like any of my close friends know that like if you ask me a question, you just make sure you're ready for the answer because I'm going to give you the honest truth. Like whether it's what you wanted or not, like you're just going to hear honesty from me. So like if that's not what you're looking for in that time, don't ask me. Uh, um,
You're transparent.
so yeah, so it's like I think with that, it's allowed me to like I can still be honest with them, but I can deliver it in a better manner. Like I can deliver it just like a little bit more empathetically and stuff. And I think it's just helped me. It's helped me a lot with like being able to respond to clients when they're dealing with difficult problems or like in a bad mental spot or whatever. Like it's helped me kind of be a little bit more calm about those things and definitely more like just not as bound up, I guess is the best word to say. I'm not so tense as I used to be.
Not till you're out of it, you sort of realize, don't you? And then it's like, oh, okay, that was.
Yeah.
But of course, thank you very much for coming back on. I really enjoy
Yeah. Thanks for
our
having me.
chats, and I hope that your shows go well the next couple of weekends with your clients. I'm sure they will. What is
Thanks very
going well,
much.
right? When you step on
Oh
stage
yeah.
and have a good
Yeah,
time.
most definitely.
Thank you, Nick, and we'll speak
Yes,
soon.
ma'am. Have a
Bye.
good one. Thank you so much.
Thank you.